Hi, I'm Brent Johnson, and today we are at Trinity Episcopal Church in Mattoon, Illinois. With me is Keith Williams. Keith is head of service for Buzard Organ Company in Champaign, and you take care of this organ. Is that correct, Keith?
We are privileged to maintain this and a number of other Reuter organs as well, yes.
So tell me about this instrument here.
This is the first installed Reuter organ. It was built in their factory, which was then in Trenton, Illinois, and it is a 9-stop organ with electro-pneumatic action. And very little about it has been changed, except that it originally was 8 stops, and we were fortunate to add a 4-foot octave to it for what we call screaming brilliance, to add, because the only other 4-foot stop on the organ was a harmonic flute. Very typical specification for 1917, a very creditable effort for a first organ from an organ factory, originally built with pneumatic action, which it still retains. It has had its original switching system upgraded with the installation of solid-state equipment. And last year, in observation of the centennial of the organ, we were privileged to add a 9th rank to it.
Oh. Reuter did celebrate their 100th anniversary last year and had a big feature in the American Organist, if you saw that. And one thing that's interesting that I didn't know until recently, that it was the Reuter-Schwarz organ company originally.
It was. Mr. Schwarz was the treasurer, and so the first organs were built with the Reuter-Schwarz nameplate. And through a series of circumstances, Mr. Reuter and Mr. Schwarz had a falling out. And so Mr. Reuter went back to all of the organs except for this one and took off the Reuter-Schwarz nameplate.
So that's still the original nameplate?
It is the original nameplate, and when we restored a sister organ down the street, we copied it. So there are now 2 Reuter-Schwarz nameplates. But all of the other ones say Reuter because that's what Mr. Reuter wanted when he moved the factory to Lawrence, Kansas, where they still operate today.
Well, and this was originally built in Trenton, Illinois.
Yes.
Not too far away, which is where they were originally located before they moved to Lawrence. So
yes.
This was an Illinois company back then. Well, tell me about the stops we've got. Let's start with the swell.
The swell has 4 ranks, the softest of which is a solitional. And although the action is pneumatic, there's a physical connection between the swell shoe and the shutters, so that you're actually using the energy of your feet to open and close the shutters. Right now they're open, and this is the gedeckt stop. And you can hear how it gets softer when you close the shutters.
Now, there are pipes here in front that the grate is exposed and the swell box is behind it? Is that
Yes.
okay.
So the swell is enclosed, the grate is not. And then the pedal borden and the extension of the swell gedeckt as a 16-foot Lieblich are arrayed around the rear of the chamber.
All right, so what else do we have?
Violin diapason. And then a little harmonic flute.
Lovely. Now that's metal or wooden harmonic flute?
Metal.
It's a metal open harmonic flute?
Yes.
Sounds lovely. How does that sound with the 8-foot gedeckt, though?
We could add the solitional to that. The full swell.
And you even have 16 and 8, or 16 and 4 couplers in case you did want to make it
Okay, full effect.
And that was original to the organ. It was typical to have those manual couplers in 1917.
Yes, because and it was expected that you would get what little brightness there was by using the octave couplers rather than having stops that were high pitched to begin with.
Because the 8 and 4 is very clear and pretty, but it's not super brilliant. So it kind of gets buried in there. It's nice to have that option to brighten it up.
Very much a product of the time when we're thinking of orchestral playing and playing of orchestral accompaniments as much or more than organ music. So it will play a tune very well. It may not lead a congregation with as much brightness as you might have from an organ from an earlier era or a later one.
And again, this was an Episcopal church, so there was liturgy to be sung, and I'm sure it was more just an accompanimental instrument as much as leading a congregation and playing repertoire. All right, so let's look at the grate then. What do we have?
The grate has a very soft string stop, a dulciana. And again, no corners cut. That's a full-length,
goes all the way
open
down,
string
yeah.
pipe down to bottom C. And just, we were talking about the octave couplers. There are extra pipes in the top octave of the swell for when you put the swell to swell 4-foot on. You get that sound, not on the grate, but again, very much in line with what other builders were doing at the time.
The swell is 73 notes,
Yes.
the grate is just 61.
Right.
Right.
So where the swell had a stopped 8-foot flute, the grate has a melodeon open wood flute. And that melodia and dulciana is kind of a typical American organ sound. And then all the power of the organ, as it was originally conceived, is very much in this great open diapason.
Big, powerful diapason. It's also pretty thick in tone. This organ has some, it's not on the brilliant side. It is very warm and dark. So how can you brighten that up? You've added the 4-foot octave to this, haven't you?
As originally installed, you would probably add the violin diapason to that and maybe couple it at 4-foot. And maybe the 4-foot flute. Adding the octave coupler to the great diapason just makes it louder, not brighter. So those pipes are linen lead. It was a very common material. Skinner diapasons are very often linen lead. When you cast the metal, you lay a sheet of linen cloth on the marble table so that when you roll the metal off the casting table, the fabric appears on the surface, not the imprint of the fabric appears on the surface of it. So it's called linen lead because linen was used as the base onto which you cast the metal. Hopefully there's a little bit of antimony in the lead so it has enough stiffness to stay upright over time.
What does that do to the sound of the pipes then?
Well, the material has some impact on the sound, but it's the scaling and the mouth width and the cut up. They wanted a very round sound.
So it's a bigger lead pipe,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
it's mainly the size and the
Right.
thickness of the metal that gets us there.
So again, it's a question of you could make a sound like that out of another metal, but we associate that very round, thick sound with diapasons made in this fashion.
Let's see. Your company has added the 4-foot octave, which
Yes.
helps. This is probably just sort of a little modern. The modern ear appreciates that a little more, I think. So show us what that sounds like.
Again, this we made also out of linen lead in the style of the original and scaled as we understand how an organ of this era would have done. In other words, a new organ might have a 4-foot octave which was bigger in the treble than the 8-foot. Here we've kept it in this orchestral style. So it's also round. It's not as thick, but it does add something to the top of the 8-foot.
I would have trouble believing that's a new octave. That sounds like.
Thank you. That's what we
something-
were
yes.
going for. So that makes a big impact when you're leading a congregation. You can use it with like the melodia underneath it instead of the diapason. Or you could even couple it to the swell violin diapason.
Stop gives you so much more options just to have that. And of course, you can couple the swell to the grate at 16, 8, and 4, so you can move those around as needed. And then the grate has its own grate to grate 4 couplers. So you have a lot of options just with these 9 stops here.
That's right. The swell has the gedect in the swell is extended downward to play as a 16-foot Lieblich. A very soft 16-foot, and then there's an independent pedal bourdon.
So we have 2 stop 16s in this
Right.
chamber as well.
Yeah.
And it's in one chamber, but we have the swell box behind the grate. As you said, the pedal goes around. So it's all just right here at the organist ear.
It is.
Now I see some pistons here. Do these function, and what do they do?
They are what's called blind pistons, and they somewhat function.
Piano and a forte and a cancel.
And a cancel, that's
Okay.
correct.
So that's handy to have if you need to quickly make it louder. Also has a crescendo pedal that you
Yes,
can
that-
use to.
And typical for many crescendo pedals. It doesn't turn on everything. It turns on most of it.
You can still throw the couplers on.
Right, you can make it a little extra. So if you had a full organ button, it would be slightly different.
I'm Allen Webner. I'm the organist here at Trinity Episcopal Church, and I've been here about 6 years. The organ leads the congregation very well, and it fills the room. This alcove in the chancel area provides a natural choral shell, and that corner right there is the best place to stand if you want to sing or speak. Well, I'm also organist at the Methodist Church, and to come over and adapt from that organ to this one is sometimes a challenge. I have about a half hour between the services. I have to watch my pedaling. I try to get warmed up before I play. So, and then also to the touch of the keys are a little different than what I'm used to at the Methodist Church. I oversaw the Centennial concert series last year. We had 5 concerts for that series, and it has proven very successful, and we're hoping to have further concerts this year.
So you had a well-attended concert series to
Very
celebrate
well.
the centennial of this instrument.
Yes, most of the times it was a packed house.
Well, it's a very versatile instrument for not being huge. It's really well sized for the room, really well voiced for the room, and for a first attempt from an organ builder, as you said, it's really remarkable that here 100 years, the only thing we've done is maybe add one stop, and maybe that would have happened anyway, even if it hadn't sat here. Now, it's worth mentioning, just in the lore of the company, this is not the first organ they built. This is the first organ they were able to install.
That's correct. The factory in Trenton, Illinois, was destroyed with the original version of this organ within it by a tornado.
Now, they had built Opus 1, set it up,
Yep.
got it all ready to install, and then the tornado came through. And
Fortunately, they had already, even as a baby organ company, they had insurance. So they were able to take the insurance money, rebuild the factory, and rebuild Opus 1. So this is officially Opus 2.
And so they were in Trenton, Illinois for a few years before
Yes.
they moved to Lawrence
Yeah.
later, where they're still in operation today.
They
So
are.
wonderful. Well, thank you, Keith, for showing us this wonderful instrument, demonstrating a little bit. It's great to see an organ like this being maintained and kept up and playing for 100 years. We hope it'll play for 100 more here.
Absolutely.
Remember, if you want classical organ music 24 hours a day, you can visit our 3 streaming stations, organlive.com, Positively Baroque, and The Organ Experience. Visit organ.media for all of our projects and to support this video project. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to get updates. We're going to go visit another very similar instrument next week, so just click the subscribe button, and if you enjoyed the video, click the thumbs up button. We appreciate that. I'm Brent Johnson. I'll see you next time.